In June 2022, after a 2-year break, HeroesCon returned to the Charlotte Convention Center. For the first time since the pandemic began, comic fans could connect with artists and writers, dive into the long boxes, and meet with old friends and make new ones. 2022 also marked 40 years of HeroesCon, making the return an even bigger celebration. The comic culture team decided to set up a booth so we could meet and talk with people during the 3 days of HeroesCon. I wondered what everyone thought about coming back, what they missed during the 2-year blip, and why a con like this is so special to the culture of comics. On this episode, I'll speak to fans and comic professionals and hopefully share what it's like to be at a comic convention and part of this welcoming community. Planning a comic convention is a difficult job. Planning your 40th anniversary celebration, well, that's even tougher. Planning the first HeroesCon since the pandemic and making it bigger than ever, well, that's nearly impossible. So how did they do it? To find out, I traveled to the comic shop Heroes Aren't Hard to Find to talk to the convention's organizers.
Well, they now practically run themselves.
Owner Shelton Drum organized the first HeroesCon in 1982.
It was really hard to plan this one because it takes pretty much a whole year to, line up the guests and sell the booth space and make all the arrangements. And we really didn't have a whole 12 months ever to know that we could do that during the pandemic years. We were kind of on hold for 20 and 21. And finally, we just made a decision. We're going to go for 22 and just make it happen.
And you also had to book a number of guests to come in, writers, artists who come in. So, is there any reluctance on their part to, get back into the convention circuit?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we had so many people on hold. It's like, yeah, we really would like to come. We were going to wait and see how the world looks. Mm-hmm. And we did book some people who actually, got COVID. Before they got here or had other health problems. The people we most love to see are the old pros, and they're a little more fragile, and you got to kind of take what you can get when you can get it, because things come up.
Despite the uncertainty, more than 225 invited comic professionals attended. In addition, other writers and artists rented booths for the weekend, making artist and indie alleys packed with creators. There's 280,000 square feet of exhibitor space at the Charlotte Convention Center. In 2022, HeroesCon used every last square inch to give attendees, vendors, artists, and guests the best possible experience, all while maintaining easy access and wide aisles. The behind-the-scenes logistics and planning for the convention floor is handled by event and creative coordinator for HeroesCon, Carla Southern.
The big part of my job is HeroesCon. And I don't know exactly how to describe what I do, because if it has anything to do with HeroesCon, I did it.
Well, I know you and I have emailed back and forth. You've helped me get press passes in previous years. This year you helped me get a booth for comic culture. So it seems like that's a lot of different things that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, if it's HeroesCon, I had my fingers in it at some point.
You mentioned that you have to get travel arrangements for all the guests. So this year you had...
Not all of them,
Not all. Okay, so how many flights are you booking? How many hotel rooms are you setting up? I mean, it seems like that's a lot of work.
I mean, we filled almost 3 hotels at Uptown this year. We don't fly everybody in, but there are a few people that we do. I'm going to say we maybe bought 10 flights, 15 flights.
Now let's talk about exhibitors. It's a big show. There are a lot of exhibitors there. And they're setting up, and they need more than just 10 by 10. So how do you sort of figure that all out?
A lot of them have been with us for 30, some of them have been with us for 40 years.
I've been to some shows where the aisles between, booths and artists and everything is really tight. Yeah. Especially if you have some folks with cosplay. Like I remember once someone walking around with a Doc Ock costume and their arms were about 8 feet out.
Yep.
And to get by, everyone's climbing on tables and knocking books over because this person's walking through. So as you're, making sure that Heroes has enough space between, and that's the great thing about Heroes, is that it's just such a wide open space that people can pass by, you can interact with the guests, you can interact with vendors. Is there ever that temptation to maybe, let's see if we can squeeze it down a little bit to get more?
No. I mean, as someone who has gone to a lot of shows, that's personally one of my favorite things about our show, is that somebody can have their baby in a stroller, or they're carrying their rolling cart with their short boxes of vintage comics. I mean, it's hard to carry a armful of comics around a convention all day. It kind of makes sense to bring a trolley of sorts.
And I know that for me, I was looking for our booth to see where it was and see who my neighbors were. And I know at one point the Joe Kubert School was going to be my next door neighbor. And then within a few days before the convention happened, it seemed like they had a reason to cancel. So when you have a last minute cancellation, especially someone in a premium spot like that, how do you kind of decide who to move into it?
Well, a lot of times if people have asked to be upgraded and they've been patient and they've been waiting, and if I can move them into a good spot for that year, I will. Now there's kind of an understanding that I may not be able to get you back in that same spot next year because Joe Kubert School's coming back next year and they're going to want their spot back.
Working with all these exhibitors, this is not like a regular 9 to 5 sort of thing, especially closer to
Never.
Heroes.
Yeah.
So, are you able to ever get a break leading up to?
No.
No.
No, from pretty much the beginning of March until the Monday after the show, you're on call 24/7. And I've been doing this show as a member of full time for a decade, but I've been coming to the show for 40 years.
Wow. With all the planning and prep work completed, vendors and guests had just one day to load in before the start of HeroesCon. The loading dock was chaotic and the convention floor was a flurry of activity. Shelton and Carla's team did an amazing job of marking out the floor and using clear signage showing everyone where to go. On Friday morning at 11, ready or not, the doors opened and HeroesCon 2022 came to life. In my experience, Fridays aren't as busy as Saturdays or Sundays, maybe because it's a work day, but there were still thousands of attendees. It's a great day for the serious fan to spend time talking with an artist at their table or scouting out some original art before someone else buys it. With the Comic Culture booth set up as a mini TV studio, I met and spoke with attendees and guests who love comics and were excited to be back at HeroesCon. But would 2 years of the pandemic temper their enthusiasm? I asked attendee and comic book fan Brian Yesowich about the elephant in the room. So let's just talk a little bit about COVID again. I mean, it's a depressing subject, but as we're back, is there any sort of reservation going back to the crowds, going back to the cons? I mean, we took our masks off to do this interview, but we've both been masked up all day.
I am fully vaccinated, so I don't believe that I'm immune, but I am comfortable being in crowds. However, I also travel for a living, and I'm respectful to those people, particularly at an indoor convention where a lot of people may not have my superhuman immunity. So I do wear a mask to protect others. I bought into that. The mask is not for me. It's to stop the spread, and we're 6 feet apart, and I respect that. So I'm going to try to follow those rules while I'm here. I'm not intimidated by the COVID. In a group like this, I also brought the sanitary wipes, so I feel protected. I feel safe.
Brian, we're here at HeroesCon. It's the first time they're doing it since 2019. What's it like being back at a con?
It's my annual Father's Day tradition, although this year it unfortunately wasn't on Father's Day, so I am here without my children, which is even a bigger Father's Day gift, if you can imagine that. So it's been wonderful. As many people did during the pandemic, a lot of us returned to reading, and so I read and explored more comic books than I'd ever had time to do since I was a teenager. So to come to a show like this and actually see the authors and illustrators of the books that I've enjoyed the last 3 years is a real treat.
You are not a comics professional. You are in television production, kind of like I am. So what is it about comics that gives you that break from, going to work every day?
It's silent. I love the fact that it is a silent medium and that I can put on a record if I wish. I have certain songs I like to play for certain genres of comic books. I have certain playlists that I'll play when I'm reading. But to me, I love that silence. I'm also a full-time father, in addition to being a full-time employee and that sort of thing. So I just love the silence. I love being able to focus visually on an image and words and read the words on the page.
The people I spoke with, be it in an interview, one of the panels I moderated, or just talking on the convention floor, all took precautions to minimize the risk of COVID. So I decided to focus on the convention experience. What did people miss the most, and what were they looking forward to at HeroesCon? Next up is cartoonist John Rose. John, you are the cartoonist behind Snuffy Smith, and every year you would come to HeroesCon in Charlotte.
Right.
But the last 3 years we haven't been able to do that because of the pandemic.
Right.
So what has the loss of the convention every year meant to you?
It really meant a lot to me. I love, as a cartoonist, I'm in my studio by myself a lot. So it's great to get out and meet the public, and this is a great way that I do that. So having that disappear for years, was kind of sad. I'm really happy to be back. Really happy that they're having it again this year.
You talk about you're in the studio alone, and I know that there are other syndicated cartoonists here, and that's what makes HeroesCon so special, is that they are including the newspaper strips in their desks.
Right. HeroesCon's one of the few Comic Cons that includes so many comic strip cartoonists. So it's good to be back with everybody. It's just great to get feedback. We have had a new character in the last couple of years, Lil Sparky, and that character has generated. He's a little horse, a little pony, and that character has generated a lot of feedback.
The great thing about Little Sparky is that that's a character that you created with your daughter.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about how the two of you collaborated and came up with the character?
Sure. We decided we wanted to work on something together. I thought it'd be fun to bring her in, and she loves the coloring aspect, the digital side of everything. So basically, I came up with the character. I write the comic and draw the comic. She colors it, and we bounce ideas off each other, and that's how we work. And Little Sparky usually appears in like week-long stints because it's a special feature. He's the grandson of Barney Google's famous racehorse Sparkplug.
The first day of any convention is a learning experience, as organizers must quickly identify and solve problems so the rest of the weekend will run as smoothly as possible. Seth Pegler shared how the HeroesCon team plans for the unexpected. What is it that you do that helps make sure that everyone who's at the show can enjoy the panels or can enjoy maybe the art contest or anything like that?
We're lucky to have some great, as we call them, lieutenants who kind of help oversee certain areas. So a lot of it, for me, at least at the convention, is checking in with them, putting out fires they may have, or helping to facilitate that.
Walt Simonson this year had a booth in a great spot, and his line seemed to go pretty much everywhere.
Yes.
And you ended up having to move him. Is that something that you're going to handle logistically?
It's something that Carla and Shelton and I all probably talk about at different points, but you learn, especially on a Friday. The thoughtfulness of this year's floor plan was that a lot of extra space was left in that new Hall C part that we hadn't used before. So we knew that should we have to move somebody, that would be an ideal place.
Now, you said you take care of different things on the program. So is this something like you're helping to coordinate the panels, or is that something that's left to others?
Andy Mansell, who's been doing the coordination, he's always the man up on the level, but he and I start as early, I think this year, as March, where we'll start kicking ideas around, and we get lots of people suggesting ideas or pitching us ideas. We're going to have some large panels, but we're going to have some other smaller boutique craft focused panels. So having a good mixture. So it's an ever evolving process, but really in March we kind of start.
Panels are a big part of HeroesCon. Panels can feature popular writers and artists talking about their favorite comics, or can be FYI sessions like the Podcasting 101 panel I organized. Andy Mansell was my contact person and kept all the panels on schedule. So Andy, you are in charge of setting up the panels here at HeroesCon. On a weekend like this, you have, I don't know how many panels, but you've got them going on 3 days straight. Yeah. How do you kind of organize the chaos?
It comes down to this, a lot of preparation. We have figured out that 60 is too many, 30 isn't enough. We've got about 50 this year. It looks like it's really turning out well. We just wanted to make sure that since people are coming out here for the first time in a couple of years, I want to give everybody something to stop being on the floor and come upstairs to enjoy.
What sort of plans do you put in place, knowing that there's still the pandemic going on, but life has to, sort of get back to normal?
We literally went into this, and I'm sure you probably had this experience somewhere around March or April. It was just kind of like crossing your fingers and saying, let's just go for it. If it all ends up for naught, okay, we gave it a shot. We currently right now have a Marvel editors panel going on right now. It was originally designed to be set up for one editor who was ill. Then 2 of the other editors got ill. So we actually have, instead of it originally being these 4 people, we've got 2 up there now. If you just stick with it long enough, things hopefully turn out for the best.
What does it mean to you? You've been involved for a long time, and seeing the convention come back after the 3-year break, what's it like?
It's insane. I'm a volunteer. I work about 70 hours a week throughout the course of the month of June. Why? For Carla, Seth, and especially Shelton Drum, the man who owns it. He has created such a great comic culture, or helped create it, and he's the one that keeps it going. I love walking into this comic convention knowing it's art and reading comics first, and you don't find that anymore. That's what gets me going. That's what we knew was at the end of the rainbow after 3 years.
The culture of comics extends beyond creators, publishers, and vendors. There were dozens of podcasters live streaming from HeroesCon. I spoke with Pat Sampson of the Longbox Crusade podcast about coming back to Charlotte for this year's convention. We're back at HeroesCon. It's been 3 years since the last convention. What about that gap? What did that mean to you, the fact that we couldn't go to conventions during the pandemic?
It meant a lot, especially you wouldn't know how much you miss it from not doing it all the time, but then having it gone for a good period of time, and it just felt like good to be back here today and doing the podcast that I do. We built it around having friends and all that in the podcast community and the comic community with everybody out there, and just it's so nice to be around that group of people again and just see some of the creators and all that too. I've gotten to know some of the creators here as well too, and being able to see them and talk to them. And
it's this sense of community that you find here. I mean, the fact that everyone has a shared interest. You see kids loving comics, you see adults loving comics. It just really makes that sense of community come to life, and it is a great place to be. So what are your goals? What do you hope to get out of the expense of getting a booth here? And is it worth the money?
The booth that I have it's my friend's booth that he's the artist. I'm here just for the podcasting side of it. But the other thing too is just meeting people and getting those connections going for podcasting. It's getting the word out there, using that as another form of media, getting the word about the podcast out there.
I know for us, it was a big decision for us to get a corner booth here.
Sure.
To try and get people to acknowledge what we do. Have you had that moment yet? Someone come over and say, I listened to the podcast?
We've had that happen several different times, which is kind of humbling and honored to feel that somebody wants to come and see you. And, coming back to some of the in-jokes that we have going on is very interesting to see. And some of the people that support us out there have traveled to come and, meet us here. It's just interesting and very humbling, I think.
Delvin Williams is one of Pat's Longbox Crusade partners.
What did missing the convention all those years, what did that do to you personally?
It definitely affected me because when I moved to Charlotte a little less than 5 years ago, summer 17, my friend Jared, one of my best friends, known him 25 plus years, he calls himself a yard sale artist. He has a table here at the convention, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a table, so I have a place to stay now. And then right around that time, I was starting on a podcast called The Longbox Crusade. And so my buddy Pat and Jared's brother Jason's like, well, can we come too? And I'm like sweating bullets, like, oh, okay. They all came up, and then people from podcast land started descending, and they said, well, Delvin, you live in Charlotte, and find us somewhere to go. And so found a place for food, and we all sat down, and it was just a really awesome communion. And so that's what I miss. We got that in 18, we got that in 19, and so 2020 was gonna be the best year ever, right? And well, not so much. So that's what I miss. I miss having that podcast family and friends that we've made all together, like getting to meet. So it's awesome to have that again.
And so let's talk a little bit about this weekend. You're here, you're with your friends. Beyond just walking around and looking at some of the artists, maybe talking to somebody, buying some books, what is it that you're hoping to get out of this weekend, beyond just being on this floor here?
I think it's more than enough to really just be here and have this again. Like that, even just coming down the stairs, I kind of just exhaled a little bit. So I'm for me, if the event goes off without a hitch, and everything goes well and everyone just has a space in the community where they're accepting and happy and everyone had as good of a time as they had, that honestly is more than enough for me personally.
Like Delvin said, there was an uplifting energy buzzing through the crowd. Maybe it was a sense of relief that things were finally getting back to normal. People felt comfortable enough to be in a crowd, and for Leiji Harlock to travel thousands of miles to attend HeroesCon. You are from Hawaii.
Yes.
You're in North Carolina for HeroesCon. So
Yes.
what made you make the trip
Two Heroes?
to Heroes? I mean, it's got to be more than a day, I guess, to travel across country, across the ocean, and across country.
Well, actually, I wanted to come to Heroes back, I would say, in 2019, and I was kind of planning it for 2020. Of course, COVID happened. That was gone. 2021, nothing. Finally glad Heroes is now happening, on their 40th anniversary. It's great.
Conventions, for me, are great because you get to be around people who have similar interests. Everyone here loves comics.
Right.
So when you come to a con, what sort of experience do you like to get out of it?
Well, when I first started going to cons, this was like, let's say, maybe back in 2004. At that time, it's like any typical fan. You're excited, like I'm gonna meet my, favorite artist or writer and so forth, and just soaking up all that culture, soaking up all that excitement from people dressing up in costumes, doing their arts in Artist Alley or whatever and so forth. As the years progressed, when I started interacting with the comic guests, for some odd reason, it just came out of the blue naturally that I somehow got along with the comic guests, and I then all of a sudden I became this person who had this natural ability of like, hey, are you interested in doing a show here in Hawaii? I can, maybe find contacts with you, maybe if you're interested in mention it. So now, back then from when I started going to the cons where you're just a fan, now it's kind of like a combination, still yet a fan, but it's more like networking. It's really hard to say, but that's the excitement of cons. You get things that are planned, that happens, and then there are unexpected things like this, which are great surprises as well. That's the excitement of cons.
As day one of HeroesCon drew to a close, everyone seemed to be back in the swing of life at a major comic convention. Vendors and guests could relax a little, confident that they could handle what was sure to be a crazy second day. It's day two at HeroesCon. As attendees wait for the doors to open, vendors and guests make sure their booths are ready for the rush. As predicted, Saturday was the busiest day, with tens of thousands of attendees packing the convention floor, local restaurants, and the streets of uptown Charlotte. For me, Saturday was a bit crazy. In addition to interviewing people at the comic culture booth, I moderated 2 panels, and our team recorded a third. It was hectic, but it was a chance to meet a surprising number of comic culture fans, like Matthew Roberto, who traveled from San Francisco to attend.
It's been a long break since 2019, the last HeroesCon, and then obviously the pandemic. So what's it mean to you to come back to a convention after all this time?
It's absolutely exciting. It's so much fun. It's a relief in a way to see a lot of people come together again for such a great hobby and a great passion. So it's been exciting. It's been really exciting, and also kind of a relief to say, oh, it's nice to get out of the house and be around this community again.
That's the one thing. I've talked to a lot of people about their experiences, and they talk about the community. What is it about, being around your fellow fans that makes you feel like you belong?
They're into the same things, and often they have a real strong passion for the characters, the literature, comic books, the stories, and we can all relate at different points in our lives to when we picked up this hobby. That's been so much fun. In a lot of ways, it's been inspiring, and it's just a great hobby to be a part of, and fans are very, very friendly, and they've been very, very helpful in this convention with trying to get things signed. It's been fun. And of course, they're just sharing what stories are our favorite, what it means to us. It's really neat to see the different ideas that fans have and the passions they have.
What do you do after you leave the convention after the long day?
That's a great question. I actually go back home, and I'm going to meet up with a bunch of friends. We're going to have a little get-together, and we're going to look at all the stuff that I got. I'm here for a lot of friends to get things signed that couldn't make it across country, that are really excited, and we're going back and forth in text, and we have a little celebration. And because we're all fans, we get together at my friend's house in San Francisco and go over all the stuff that I can talk about all the people I met and stories I have.
On Saturday, the comic culture crew included 2 of my students from the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. Zell and Victor are mass communication majors and worked on our regular comic culture studio tapings during the academic year. At HeroesCon, they recorded interviews and panels, as well as footage from the convention floor. It was sort of a UNC Pembroke homecoming, as I had a chance to reconnect with UNCP alumni and former faculty. First up is my former student, Joshua Long.
This is the first convention that we've had since 2019. I'm wondering what it means to you to come back to a convention after the 2-year, 3-year pandemic break.
It means a lot in the sense that you take stuff for granted so much, and you just don't realize how important small stuff even though this is a bigger con, how much it's important to you. Just being able to come out and see people, especially just the fellowship of it, and meet old friends. It's words are hard to describe it, to be honest with you.
You know, a lot of people have talked about that camaraderie, that community that comes from being among other people who share a similar interest. So what are your goals at the con today?
Well, I'm trying to find some different Spawn books. I have some holes to plug. Spawn's not necessarily the most popular, but he's up there, so trying to plug some holes.
Is there any creator that you're looking forward to meeting?
Gonna be honest, not really. I came for Spawn comics. That's what I'm here for.
Right.
I'm a man on a mission. But then I heard you're here, so I said I gotta stop by. I gotta make sure he still remembers his face, so I can haunt you dreams or nightmares, whichever one.
We'll go with Dreammares.
Dreammares, yeah. That sounds like it's like a My Little Pony thing now.
I guess so. When you put it that way, it sounds creepy. We're at the convention. What do you do after a long day digging through the long boxes? What do you do? Are you spending time with friends? Are you coming back tomorrow? What are your plans?
Coming back tomorrow. I got a different friend. Got a different friend group to come with tomorrow. So I'm going to hit it again. Afterwards, I'll probably pass out because got here way too early. But that's what you got to do to get, try to get a decent spot in line. Yeah, no, after here, probably taking a nap.
Former UNCP professor Carol Graham came from Alabama to attend HeroesCon.
You know, everyone has something that they're looking for. So what is it that is on your list of things that you know you can find here if you just look hard enough?
I collect Golden Age, specifically Fawcett, and I collect WOWs with Mary Marvel and Mary Marvel, the cover itself. So you're talking about from the 40s and 50s. I'm talking about comic books that are older than I am. I love looking for books in good condition. It's usually the cover that sells me more than the stories, and particularly for comics that were produced during the war, you understand that a lot of them were recycled, maybe not kept in the best condition. There's one staple holding everything together because of rationing. And so what I'm looking for is a good, solid, not going to turn to dust book. I believe collecting is curating for the future. And so it's not just for me to have, but for me to have, know that it's safe, and then one day perhaps pass it on to somebody else that will appreciate it. I was telling one of the dealers, he was like, wow, why did you get into that? And I was like, true story. My mother was in a bookstore with me and my brother. I was probably 8, my brother 4. And they had just published compilations for Captain Marvel. It's Shazam under DC. And she bought that for me. I got the Shazam one. Mary Marvel was in it. Was a different kind of superhero than Wonder Woman or anything like that. And I was like, I love this. I love this. And so I've been collecting it actively probably since college, but fell in love as a kid. So.
What are you going to do? You're here at the con, you drove a long way to get here, so you're going to probably stay the night, probably come back tomorrow. So what is it that you do after being on the floor all day that, maybe is going to be different than just going back and going to sleep?
Tonight is the art auction. One year we were here, we were in the front row. And it's just great, even if you don't bid or win or buy anything, seeing how creative people can be with different forms and mediums of art. Our plan right now is to go to the art auction and enjoy that, run into some folks, have some conversations, just see people, which has been really great.
Matthew Kennedy was a student my first year at UNCP.
It's a long drive for you to come here.
It is.
So, what makes this worthwhile? What makes it worth the drive?
I'd say my brother and his family, they moved to the Concord area 2 years ago when BB&T and SunTrust joined Truist. They work with Truist. So they were able to come last night, have a little pizza, with them, play a little basketball, see them, and then to spend the day with them showing just different things they can buy and see. They don't come to these like I do, 2 or 3 a year. So it's nice to showing them culture. My culture, the comic culture, and seeing their eyes light up because there's so much talent in this place.
I know you're a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan.
Huge, yeah.
So tell me, what are you looking for? What is your goal this weekend as you start diving through the long boxes?
I try to find the toys that are out now. Sometimes you can't find them in stores. I like original art. I think the prints are nice and cool, but when you actually get the original art of it and you can afford it, that's the nice part. So I think getting a piece of original art is fine. I know here, Michael Dooney's here. He worked in the Mirage days of Turtles. We're supposed to have Ben Bishop. I'm actually a part of the Bishop Art Kids Club. He did The Last Ronin, a lot of the interiors. We got Noah, a lot of people here did to get the covers. So anything original art, you got me hooked. Expensive, but you got me hooked.
What about not being able to go to the cons the past 2 or 3 years?
I think the internet and the websites like Patreon and stuff like that, that's changed it all for some. The communication with fans and the artists has really changed the past 3 years. But there's nothing like being in person, seeing them draw in person, talking to them, because it's most of them it's their living, and they try to sell you what they're drawing and their stories. So it's fun to hear their backgrounds, and I like it.
Comic pro, professor, and friend, Kevin Freeman rounds out the UNCP homecoming.
You traveled from Alabama to be here.
Correct.
I spoke to somebody earlier who traveled from San Francisco, and yesterday I spoke to somebody who traveled all the way from Hawaii to be here. So what is it about a convention that makes you want to travel, hours and hours in the car to get here?
For me, it's accessibility. This is a place where, again, if you are a comic person, this is the place, because a lot of creators are here, and from all eras. I mean, there's Silver and Bronze Age folks that you and I like, all the way up to the modern folks, and the crowds here are not so crazy. The lines are not so long, in that you can spend a little bit of time with a creator and talk to them for a few minutes while they're signing your book or doing you a commission. And the number of smaller artists who are trying to break into the industry or who are doing creator-owned kind of stuff, the number of those folks here is really high too. So the possibility of you seeing something that you've never seen before and liking it is higher here as well.
As we get to be the older, shaking our fist at cloud fans,
Get off my lawn.
Right. I'm starting to see a lot of younger people doing, cosplay of anime, which is something that wasn't on my radar. And different characters from video games that I just don't recognize at all. People our age might recall comics as being something you didn't talk about because it wasn't cool, it wasn't hip, and you'd get a wedgie in gym class. As you watch the acceptance of comics, the movies, the new series that are coming out, what do you see as the biggest change?
I think comics is still trailing, to be honest, though. I mean, the pop culture aspect of it has exploded. I mean, with the movies and the MCU and DC Universe and the video games and everything else, but the comic book part of the equation, I think, is still trailing a lot of that stuff, because there's still that reputation that comics is for kids, and you shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff, and the sales numbers reflect that. I mean, the numbers of the circulation numbers of a lot of books that are some of the most popular ones out there, they're still not where they were 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. So the comic industry itself still has a little bit of work to do to get caught up with the whole pop stream, mainstream aspect of comic book culture. It's interesting.
HeroesCon set an attendance record on Saturday. The day was a whirlwind, and before I knew it, it was the end of the day. I spoke with attendee Richard Patterson before the doors closed for the night.
I've talked to folks, and one of the things that they've mentioned a lot is doing stuff with friends here at Heroes, or the community, meeting people with similar interests. Right. So, as you kind of think about that, when you weren't able to go to the con, were you able to have that same kind of interaction?
Me and my friend Jeff and our friend Jason, we organized like a mini con in our hometown Greenville. So we've still been able to kind of keep in touch with that fan base, So we do some shows in the area as well, and so we kind of never really stopped, It kind of helped us out with that too, and just, that's half the fun of coming to these things, is just meet people with a similar interest, We
have creators like Chris Claremont here this year, Walt Simonson. are you able to get that experience? They've got the longer lines. So when you go and wait on those lines and finally get to speak to them, do you get to spend enough time?
It's brief, but I feel like it's worth it, Like I said, when I first started doing this, I get a little tongue-tied and starstruck. I've kind of gotten over that because I know my time is limited. So I kind of, while I'm in line waiting, I'm trying to think of what I might want to ask or what I might want to say, so that I feel like I get my time is worth standing in that line,
One of the things that you do, because we're friends on Facebook, I know that you are an artist. You do commissions for folks. As an artist, meeting other artists, how do you sort of interact to get maybe some pointers or tips?
It took me a while to get over being starstruck. That's the hardest part, I think. But most of the artists seem pretty happy to share the tips. I like especially Lee Weeks. I know you've interviewed Lee Weeks, Jim Starlin. Most of them are more than happy to share whatever information they can. Even if it's just something small. Like how they approach a page layout or something like that. So I just open my big trap and ask, basically.
It's day 3 at HeroesCon. Sunday was the most relaxed day of the weekend, and that's because Saturday was so busy. For artists and invited guests, a show like HeroesCon is business, a chance to sell sketches, commissions, and original pages. Vendors bring thousands of comics to sell, and a busy Saturday means business is good. Many artists and vendors made their goal for the con by the end of Saturday afternoon, and they could exhale and enjoy the slower pace on Sunday. There's still work to be done and thousands of attendees on the floor, but vendors don't mind haggling prices for a book you'd like to buy. It's one less thing for them to tote back home. Even artists who may have been sketching like crazy since Friday have more time to talk as they finish up their commissions. Sunday is a fun day and a great chance to reflect and learn what people enjoyed most during the 3 days of HeroesCon, which is what I did. First up, Power Pack co-creator and Maryworth artist, June Brigman.
We are back at HeroesCon after a 3-year break. What's it like to be coming back to the con after all that time?
It's even better. Somehow it's even better than before. I've always loved this convention. It's my favorite convention. And it always feels like a family reunion because there's so many people, artists and writers here that I've known for 30, 40 years. But after COVID, I realized maybe I was taking that for granted a little bit. And it's just even more special now to see these people after this strange, awful time. And we're all still here. We're all doing our work. We're all healthy. And it's wonderful. And we can hug each other. It just makes it even more special.
A lot of people have said the same thing. It's that reconnecting with friends, the sense of community that they get at a show like this.
Right.
A lot of people have a goal. For comic fan, it might be finding that issue of New Gods #1. When you're at a convention, what's your goal?
To buy as much Jose Luis Garcia Lopez artwork as I can. Many times at a convention, whatever I make, I end up walking around and buying artwork and buying books, and it just goes back into the system, I guess, out of one artist's hand and into another artist's hand. So I'm a fangirl too. I haven't had a lot of time to walk around at this show, but I'm definitely going to. I've got a lot of people I need to talk to and see, and I'm gonna do a little shopping before I go home.
Well, that's great to hear, because a lot of times people get that burned out feeling, and maybe they don't want to go and look at another comic for a while. But
no, that's one of the best parts to me is to see what artists I already know are doing, and then to look around and find some new artists to follow.
Walking around Artist Alley, you'll see dozens of up-and-coming artists looking to introduce themselves to comic fans. Artist-writer Kevin Delgado came to HeroesCon to build his brand.
Everybody seems to have a goal. Now, you're here as an artist, so you are using this as sort of a business decision to come here.
So my book is getting picked up for publication, so for me to just come out here and kind of make connections and boost it and get the word out is invaluable. So I'm kind of just looking at it as a positive, regardless of money, you know what I mean? It's fine. I've pretty much broken even, so, and I still have all of today left, so That's kind of my area for profit.
How do you kind of talk to the crowd, the people coming up to the table about the book to get them excited about it?
I've got a quick pitch. My book is Troubled Alley Cat Has to Save Spring Break in 1993. And most people, yeah, exactly, get a little giggle out of it. Most people are like, okay, then they see the artwork, draws them in a little bit more. And, then I tell them I'm the sole force behind it, so then that's another push. So it's kind of got like those three things working for it, where I think people really want to get behind it.
You are a pro, but you're also a fan. So when you go to a con, who are you looking forward to meeting?
The Cartoonist Kayfabe guys, because I'm in a lot of their fan groups and everything, and it's a really great community, and we're all over the place, so it's kind of like a brotherhood almost. And every con I go to, I know a lot of people from that group. So in itself, it's a network, and it's a lot of up and coming, real creative indie kind of guys. So it's and ladies. So it's a awesome community, and they love the material. It's not, we're not just speculators and stuff. We're here for the craft.
Like Kevin, artist Leica Kirk came to HeroesCon to introduce herself to a new audience.
For artists, not being able to go to cons is really going to affect their bottom line. So how did you kind of weather that when you couldn't go out and meet people and introduce them to your art face to face?
Man, I know that this definitely hit a lot of my friends hard. A lot of them quit doing art full time and picked up small jobs that they could handle. I luckily had a Patreon, and then obviously once cons came back, I was ready to roll. So a lot of it was kind of nerve-wracking. It was kind of scary. Just where am I going to get my income? What's going to happen? But I used a lot of the time to build more into my portfolio, make it stronger. So I guess you just kind of had to do what worked best for your what you needed. But I just pretty much, I was out in the woods. I had moved right before COVID. Not because of COVID, just so happened, moved out in the woods of Northeast Georgia and stayed in a very rural place and just kind of made art and managed to just plan properly and weather the storm, essentially. I got lucky, to be in a nutshell.
Everyone has a goal, whether it's a comic lover looking through the long boxes trying to find that one issue they don't have. So what is your goal at the convention this year?
I mean, it's like what you were mentioning with why without cons is to meet people, to get your work out there, meet new fans, essentially expand the empire. Just go out there and meet new fans. I do have a Patreon that I have at every show. Eventually people just jump on board, they jump off, and it kind of builds. And it's a really nice way to keep doing the thing I love and also connecting with people.
The slower pace of Sunday meant I could sneak away from the comic culture booth between interviews to speak with guests on the floor. For a guest, having someone at their booth to keep things organized is a godsend. For artist Lee Weeks, it's his wife Tish who keeps things running smoothly. Tish, we're here at HeroesCon 2022. It's been a 3-year break. You are here with your husband Lee, who is, of course, behind us working on some more commissions. So during a normal convention, you are kind of helping him out with running the table and keeping the line going and everything like that. So, what's this convention like compared to the last time we had it in 2019?
It has been much more busy, and he's actually, we're both tired from not doing it regularly, but it's been an amazing time here. But it's always an amazing time here, so.
And, we talk a lot to writers and artists on this show, but we don't talk to the people who help them out all the time. So, during a normal convention, what do you do to sort of, make it easier for him to do the commissions and not have to get annoyed with, people asking a lot of questions?
Well, I try to be a little bit assertive in making sure the times for his signings are correct and people have everything out, and just hand him the things intermittently for him to sign and that kind of thing.
And, we're back, it's 2022, it's a brand new HeroesCon. What is it that you look forward to the most when you come to a convention like this?
Well, at HeroesCon, I look forward to all the people. All the people are so sweet. And everybody that comes into the con, the people that want to buy stuff, they're polite, they're nice, and there's lots of room. It never feels crowded.
And it's funny because I heard that this is the busiest, yesterday was the busiest Saturday they had in their 40 years, and they do a great job of making sure that there's just ample space and you don't feel congested and compressed. So, I know for some people their goal is to get that issue that they don't have in their long box. Their goal is to get that commission or that sketch done. So what's your goal when you're here at Heroes?
Just to talk with people, make them feel comfortable that the time they're waiting isn't long and they're, basically happy.
It's really cool because a lot of people I've spoken to keep saying the same thing, that they like the energy, they like the people, they like the community. And, as somebody who's both an insider and sort of an observer, what do you kind of just get from the whole experience?
I think I get energy and a peace at the same time. And actually, I get a renewed place in my heart that humanity isn't that bad.
Back at the Comic Culture booth, I spoke with Craig Zablo, who helps artist John Beatty at HeroesCon. I've seen you at HeroesCon over the years. What's it like getting back on the convention floor after that unwanted break?
It's a little strange, actually, because you get so isolated, and when you come out, you want to be careful because some people are wearing masks, some are not, and you don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. But it's great seeing friends that you haven't seen in a while, and the people that come to Heroes regularly, it's like a family.
It's funny, I've talked to a lot of people, and almost everyone has made the same comment. It's the community, the family feel of coming to a show like this. When you don't have the convention to go to, are you keeping in touch with any of those comic friends, or are you just waiting till everything clears and you can get back on the floor?
With a lot of them, we do keep in touch. Emails, and they may have newsletters or whatever, and you're supporting them. And then there are some you only see at the show. So it's a mixed bag, but it's like a family member that you haven't seen in a while, and then you see them, and it's just like the years go by, and it doesn't really matter. You pick up that last conversation you were having.
Everyone seems to have a goal when they come to a convention, whether it's looking for that elusive issue, that #1 of Spider-Man or something like that. What is your goal at the convention?
It's changed over the years. When I first came here, I was just hanging out with my buddy John Beatty. He's a Marvel and DC inker, and through him I knew a lot of comic artists. But as my sons started growing up and we were coming, I started to get art again, but I was collecting Sylvester Stallone characters. I run the Stallone Zone, the website, and so that was my goal. And when I come now, it's basically just to hang out, get a sketch or two. Interestingly enough, I picked up a couple of sketches for my grandson, Blue's Clues this year. So we got 3 generations loving Heroes.
Back in Artist's Alley, I spoke with writer-artist Billy Tucci. Billy, it's been, I guess, 3 years or so since the last HeroesCon. What's it like getting back to the convention circuit after having that unwanted break?
Horrible. No. No, it's fantastic. This is almost like a big family reunion because so many of us, as you can tell by my voice, the fun I've been having in ballyhoo is that, it's almost become like these conventions become your social life in a way. That's when you see your friends, and we're all scattered all across the world. And big shows like this, and this is, it was just like a fantastic reunion. And the cool thing is that there's just such an amazing sense of positive energy around these shows, comic conventions and all. And what I also love about this is that this show is so comic book centric. It's a lot of shows, they'll have their wrestlers, you'll have celebrities and all, and that's nice, but this has always been a comic book convention. And it's wonderful. It really is.
And, I know that this is, it's a business for you. Here you're doing commissions, and so, when you've got that unwanted break, how do you sort of fill in that gap?
Well, work. Just work. We've had, believe it or not, the COVID, the pandemic was the best thing for me because I started to then republish my comics. And to bring my original character, my creator-owned property, I just started bringing her back and publishing again through crowdfunding, through Kickstarter, through Indiegogo, and we've had the best 2 years that I've had since 1999. It's been phenomenal. So it's great, and I love publishing again. I love the freedom. I've had a lot of fun working for Marvel and DC, but loving those characters. But there's nothing like having create your own property and selling it, and it's been. What can I say? I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world. I'll tell you that. Being able to do this, do what you love.
Collector Peter Rowe shared what he loves about comics.
There's nothing like going through a comic book stack and finding, things that you need to fill out your collection. There's nothing like going through original art and looking at art and saying, oh yeah, I wish I could have that. But like the texture and feel of the product itself. William Cox, he runs Comic Art Fans. He's here and he's been getting some of the collectors together. And that's been really fun to meet and join with some of the comic art collectors.
What are you looking for this year?
That is a very hard question. It's just to find some, to fill out some of my art books that I have, some of my sketchbooks that I wanted to get some more sketches like from Ron Friends. So I've never had a sketch in my sketchbook from him for in which Justice Society of America, or to do something that they usually don't do, and that's been a lot of fun.
Now, I saw the other day that Ron was doing an Hour Man. Was that your Hour Man?
Yes.
All right. You were very lucky because that's an awesome piece he did.
He did a fabulous job on it, and it also you get a great feeling when they say they enjoyed doing something. You're not asking them for the usual Spider-Man or Captain America or Thor, and when they do something that they really like, or they do something for the first time that they've never done before, that's a lot of fun to see. And so there is that connection between the fan and the artist. It's a lot of fun. That's why I like these kinds of cons, because it's a lot easier to have that interaction with the artist and some personal connection.
For artist Daryl Banks, connecting with fans made returning to HeroesCon special.
I've done this about 6 times, and this is easily the biggest. Most enthusiastic. Comic fans tend to be very enthusiastic anyway, but it seems like dialed up a little bit more. Also, I believe it's because it's an anniversary show, the 40th anniversary of Heroes Convention. So definitely feeling the love this weekend. I never assume I'm going to do well at a show. I always hope that I will. I imagine that I will, but I don't go, oh, it's automatic. So especially I've done the show 6 times. It's not like I've done it like some of my other shows I've done for decades, So, but once again, the fans of Heroes, they didn't disappoint, not at all.
And you mentioned the show is basically part of your business. So that 2-year break, were you able to kind of negotiate the pause in conventions by doing commissions and the like?
Absolutely. That's something that's really part of my workflow, as as time permits. But unlike most shows I'll do, I wasn't able to schedule commissions pre-done. I do, like someone might send me a message by way of Instagram or something. I saw you're going to be at Heroes. Can I order something and pick it up? I wasn't able to do that. So all of the drawing I did had to be on site. But like I said, a lot of enthusiastic fans, and I think I had a record sales amount this weekend, I believe.
Were you able to take a break at all and enjoy just being out and about?
No. I wish I did, but however, my number one bucket list thing, besides business-wise, but as far as a fan, I've always wanted to actually chat with Walt Simonson, famous, he needs no introduction. And I was able to do that.
Derek Crabb is another long-distance traveler going cross-country to attend HeroesCon. So, Derek, I understand you came from California to come to HeroesCon this year. So, what is it about this convention that made you want to travel across the country to come and check it out?
It's basically my friends. I came to a HeroesCon in 2017 and kind of only knew people from podcasting and internet, social media, friends, and everything like that. And I had the greatest time of my life, right? So, I came back in 2019. I brought some of my own podcast hosts with me. So there's a lot of treasured special memories here. And I think when I heard a lot of people in the art collecting community were coming out, there's a website, CAF, for Comic Art Fans. They were all coming to the show as well. That's sort of when I started to to get like, FOMO. I was like fear of missing out. Like I better make an effort to come down here and everything. So that's totally like entirely why this is the best place to be, because you get to meet friends and just people who have like shared interests with you.
Suddenly, it was late afternoon on Sunday. For Darren and Ruth Sutherland, it was time to reflect on the 3 days that passed by so quickly.
If you go to enough conventions, you end up making some wonderful convention friends where it may be the only time you see them is maybe once a year. So it's a bit like a reunion, and to have missed it for a couple of years, I think makes it feel even more special to see those friends.
That's a perfect answer, I tell you. I couldn't have thought of a better one, because that's what we spent most of the weekend doing, is just saying hello to friends that we only see at conventions. So here we have a chance to see them again for the first time in too many years. And that's just what's exciting to us. So it's wonderful running into friends back and forth here and there. We've been doing lots of hugging and lots of laughing and lots of storytelling.
We had the pleasure of being on a panel hosted by you to focus on podcasting. And so we're podcasters, and we have a lot of friends in the podcasting community. So it was, thanks to you for pulling some of us together to give some tips to people who are interested in learning more about podcasting. That was a lot of fun.
It was such a wonderful panel you put together, because, that was Friday. It's now Sunday late in the day. And we've had people come up to us this afternoon that were in that panel that were looking for us again to get a chance to talk, because you had such great questions. You put together a good, diverse group of podcasters, and we all had fun. I don't know what my expectations were when I came, but they ended up being exceeded by just those types of interactions.
And just like that, HeroesCon 2022 was over. It was time to pack up, head for home, and plan for next year. With the dust settled, we're back to where we started. Heroes aren't hard to find in Charlotte, to ask founder Shelton Drum one last question.
During the convention, how much work do you do, and do you ever get a chance to kind of sit back and enjoy yourself?
I enjoy the show if it's successful, and this one was. However, I did not get to look at any comic books to buy for my collection.
For me, the 3 days were a blur. Running a booth, conducting interviews, and moderating panels kept me busy. Like many of the people I spoke with, it felt great to get back to normal, to meet viewers, to meet old friends, and to make new ones. I'm grateful to the Comic Culture crew for their enthusiasm and dedication over the 3 days of HeroesCon. We'll be back in 2023 and hope to see you there.